You're listening to the Unicorns Podcast.
Welcome to another edition of the Unicorns Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Kelly. Our focus today is on all things estate planning and wills. If you've spent a lifetime waiting for your parents' inheritance, you might be in for a rude shock. With $3.5 trillion in assets due to be passed on by baby boomers over the next 20 years, new data from Safewill shows this might not end up in their children's hands as expected. Instead, a growing number of grandchildren are set to inherit their grandparents' estates. Instead, research by Safewill out this week shows a big shift in inheritance patterns. 1 in 10 wills include grandchildren, but there's been a 225% rise in wills completely bypassing children in favour of grandchildren. Safewill is Australia's premier online will writing platform, and from today, Safewill is offering free wills for 1 week. You can get a will drafted for free. Lawyers oversee the process to ensure the legally binding documents are completed correctly. Isabelle Marcarian is the principal solicitor of Safewill Legal, and she joins us now. G'day, Izzy. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Justin. How are you?
Very well. Let's talk about getting a free will. Let's start with the basics, Izzy. Safewill is offering free will writing services for a week. How does this work?
So I guess firstly, a little bit about Safewill. It's obviously Australia's first and largest online will writing platform, and it works by allowing you to create an account, to move through sections of that account and provide the information required to generate a legally valid will document. And from Sunday, we're essentially automatically allowing anyone that creates a will on the platform to check out for free. So you won't need to pay anything for your will, which is normally $160.
And how long does it normally take to put a will together if they're using Safewill?
So we see that it typically takes about 20 minutes. Sometimes it can take a bit longer if you're not sure about some of the answers or who you'd like to appoint to certain positions. But if you're reasonably confident, it can be very quick, because all it is really is you putting in information that you already know about yourself, your name, loved ones' names, and it moves through quite quickly.
And so is it a case of that a lot of the information is just sort of auto-filled? It helps you to make the process a bit easier?
So I think it's a combination. You will initially put in the information. We obviously don't already know some things, but once you put in one lot of information, for example, your spouse's name, the system will automatically save that person along the way in other sections, so you don't need to enter them again. And that's why it can be so quick. A lot of people might just want to go on. They're married, they want to give everything to their spouse, they want to appoint their children to receive the backup amount, and it's really about just putting those people's details in, selecting, moving through to finish the document.
And I mentioned in my introduction that all of these wills are checked by lawyers, they're certified, it's registered. So can you just shine a light on the process, what's happening in the background, to let people know exactly what is happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So the platform itself is allowing you to write your own will. So you are the starting point for the document. And what you're going to do is you're going to go through modules or sections where it will say, who are you? You'll write out your name. Who do you want your executor to be? Who do you want the beneficiaries to be? And there'll be tips along the way and pieces of information to help you understand what you're doing. And I think something unique, though, about Safewill is where a lot of other online platforms, you'll just go through and do that. You'll hit checkout and it will make the will immediately available to download. We don't do that. We let you put everything in and then your will goes through a review process, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that you're using this technology correctly, that you're not putting in information that's not consistent with the questions we're asking you, or information or instructions that are too complicated for what the platform can achieve. So the law firm, so Safewill Legal, which is Safewill's affiliate law firm, is reviewing all of these wills to make sure that you're using that technology properly. And if you are, then the will's made available for download. But if you're not, or we pick up issues, we actually flag those, and you get information inside your account to say this is the section that's not right, either information of what you can do to resolve those issues, or if you need legal advice to resolve those issues because either you're trying to create structures that are too complicated or conditions that are too complicated, we have that available for you as well via the law firm, also at a very low fixed fee. So it's a very holistic platform in that way.
Izzy, how important is it to have a will?
It is very, very important. I'll try not to be too passionate about this, but basically a will is really one of the most important documents you're going to do, because what it is it's not only a document that is explaining or dictating who you'd like to benefit from your estate. That's obviously very important. So we want to say, these are our assets and this is who I want to receive those assets. I think we understand that part, and it's worth me saying without a will, it can be quite complicated to decide who is receiving your assets. So please keep in mind, if you don't have a will, do you know who's going to receive your assets? Do you know what the law says, what the default laws are? Does it match what you would want to happen? Sometimes it really doesn't match, and it creates an instance where estranged people are benefiting from things you've worked hard for in place of your loved ones. Other times, it might be exactly the same outcome, but what you're doing without the will is you're making it administratively much harder for your spouse, for your children to access those assets, because they're going to go through a long process of proving who they are to the courts, digging out certificates, swearing that you didn't have other spouses, things like that. So obviously, it's very critical from the asset perspective. But the other perspective that I think is missed, because people do say, oh, well, I don't have any assets, I don't need a will. It's very important from an administrative perspective. When you do your will, you're appointing your executor. Your executor is the person who's administratively in charge of things. And this can be as simple as who organises the funeral. If there's no will, there's no executor, and there can be an argument about who's in charge. Who's in charge of the funeral? Who's in charge of talking to utilities providers? Who's in charge of applying for your super? So it's a really critical document, and we're really trying to make it as accessible and affordable as possible, because we know it hasn't always been that way.
I mentioned in my introduction there are a number of surprising trends which have come to the surface by way of some of the research and data that Safewill has. And one of them is that grandkids are set to be the big winners in the intergenerational wealth transfer. What can you tell us about that?
It is a surprising trend. Were you shocked when you read about the numbers?
I was.
I was as well, and I think what's happening, or what I think is happening, is that grandparents are of a certain age, and their children are also of a certain age, so maybe they're in their 40s, and they're wanting to bypass completely to their grandkids for a few reasons. I think one reason is they're worried potentially about the relationships of their children, so divorces. They're not wanting, the in-laws to take funds. And the other might be because their children are already set up, and so they're wanting to help the grandchildren. So I think that's what's happening. As an estate planning lawyer, to me, it's more than just a trend. I think I won't be alone when I say it is slightly, it's something I'm looking at, because I'm wondering whether we're going to see children upset by this. Some of the times that I've seen it happen, children are across it, and they're like, yep, that's fine, I want my kids to have it. They're happy to get skipped because they are already set up. That's fine. The only thing to be mindful of for people listening, or for people that want to do the same thing, is to just ensure everyone's on the same page. And if they're not, or you're nervous to have that conversation and you do want to go straight to the grandkids, just get some legal advice as part of that, whether it's on Safewill or otherwise. just to make sure that you're not exposing the estate to a claim by your children, because children are a very strong category of people that are eligible to challenge the distribution in a will.
I was going to ask you that. So legally, can you skip your own children, for example, and what is the mechanism by which you can do that? Is it a gift or is it setting up a trust? What's the best way to go about this?
Yeah, so I guess the simple answer is you can skip your children. Technically, you can do a will that says anything. The question becomes, what's the consequence of doing that? So you can write a valid will, leave everything to your grandchildren, or you could write a valid will with a trust inside, leaving everything to your grandchildren. They're both ways that you might wish to go about it. It's more, what's the consequence of creating that valid will? And in Australia, we have this concept of family provision, which basically says there are certain people in your life that are eligible to make a claim on your estate. So notwithstanding that you have a will that makes perfect sense, that's valid, that dictates your wishes, spouses, biological children, adopted children, dependents, people that are financially dependent on you, and it depends state to state, I should say. Sometimes parents are eligible, siblings, things like that. But those people can say to the court, I haven't been provided for enough in this will, and I want to challenge the outcome of this will. So it's not that the will's invalid. It's not that I wasn't allowed to write the will I wanted. It's that the outcome is going to be challenged potentially. And so that's why I recommend the advice, making sure you've thought about that and the potential financial consequences of that.
Let's talk about updating your will, because I'm certain many of our listeners already have wills, but they perhaps have not updated them for some time, because the data is showing that relationship breakdowns are the most common reason for will updates in 2024. So what's your advice, Izzy, on if you've got a will, but it hasn't been updated for a while?
I think this is one thing where the data is something I'm comfortable with. I'm happy that relationship breakdowns are the reason we update the will, because that's one of the main reasons you should update your will. The most dangerous thing is when people are married, they've left everything to their married spouse in their will. And what they do is they separate, but they haven't gotten around to divorcing. The will stands and that spouse is going to get everything. So make very, very sure that as relationships change and certain people have been given gifts in relation, that you're in a relationship with, and if that relationship ends, that your will is the first thing you think about, because unfortunately we could end up in this unimaginable scenario where someone you're no longer in a relationship with has an absolute legal entitlement to your entire estate. So I think that's the main reason you'd update your will. And other reasons, obviously, just think if you've had children, those children aren't mentioned in an old version of your will, make sure that they're mentioned in a new version. Significant asset changes, or you've given an asset to someone that doesn't exist anymore, make sure you update the will, or else that gift is going to fail. And then you might also, as time goes on, you might accumulate more assets than you thought you might have, or you might have essentially quite a lot of funds. And based on the fact that you have more assets, there might be other types of wills that are more suitable to your financial circumstance. For example, a testamentary trust will is something you might consider once you have a couple of $1 million in assets.
Your research shows that 40% of Australians don't know if their parents have a will. So how important do you think it is to have these conversations before death, before end of life?
It's really, really essential because you have to think about it from the practical perspective. Obviously, it's going to be a very emotional time, but as part of that time, there is also a moment where you as the child need to understand what to do. And it's almost more important to tell your parents to get a will, given they're a generation older than you, than do your own. I know it's such an unusual thing to say, but given the probabilities, it's like we really need to understand, where are your parents' assets? Who's their executor? Where is the original will stored? Because it's you that's going to, during an emotionally difficult time, you are going to administratively suffer on top of the emotional burden if your parents don't have the will. You're the one that's going to be either by yourself or with your siblings going, where's this? Where are the accounts? Is there a will? There's no will. There's a copy. Where's the original?
In this file, I don't know where it is. Did they
Yeah.
have one?
Yep. Yeah, and it happens more often than you think. And this scenario in particular, these children trying to navigate the passing of their parent who doesn't have a will, they're the ones that most strongly say to me, oh my goodness, I need to get my own will done. Because once you go through it yourself with your own parents, you realize you never want to put your children through that.
There we go. I want to switch gears ever so slightly to modern estate planning, because I think the latest figures, Izzy, show 1 in 4 Australians have some form of digital asset, a digital currency, crypto, Bitcoin. When you pass, crypto is notoriously troublesome with a paper trail and
Yes.
keys and
Yes.
passwords. What can you tell us about digital assets and how best to either pass them on, protect them? How does that work in a will?
I wish I could tell you that there was more to it, more complex or process-based solutions, but digital assets are similar to any other asset. We need to know where they are. If we don't know where they are, we aren't going to find them. And it's even harder with something like crypto. You really need to be across where is your crypto stored. If it's in, there's platforms with passwords. How do you get in? I recommend either keeping all your passwords in a secure place with its own password. There are sort of layers of password accounts, and making sure your loved one or your executor has access to that so that they can get in. Or if you're not comfortable with the passwords, at least listing where you hold the accounts. So whether it's BT Markets or whatever it is, at least giving the platform so that we can contact that platform, say, Isabelle held an account, this is her email address, this is the authority, the will, the probate, whatever, give me the password. It's a little bit more complicated, but essentially it's the same principle as any other asset. Make sure we know where it is, or else there is a risk that we won't find it and we won't be able to administer it.
Safewill does a lot of work with charities, and despite obvious cost of living issues at the moment, the data is showing that Australians left more than $400 million in their wills to charity last year alone. So, Izzy, how easy is it to leave a gift in your will, particularly to a charity?
That's such a great stat. It makes me so proud. It's something I think all of us here in the business are really proud of, because I think in traditional estate planning, the question was never even surfaced. Like, do you want to leave anything to charity? You don't have to, but imagine not even getting asked the question or thinking about it, because this is the period in your time where you're going to do your single biggest wealth transfer. We're all under cost of living pressures now, as you said, so it might be a bit harder during your lifetime, but a will is the perfect time. And it is very simple on Safewill. So we have 2 places you can do it. It might be that you either want to leave a gift, a specific cash amount, which you do in the gift section of the will. It's very easy. You type in the amount. We have a pick list of charities. You just type it in. The ABN, everything will usually get automatically selected. Or you might want to leave a percentage of your estate. So that's in the estate section. Again, you can go in, you pick the charity, or either a combination of charities, one charity, or a set of causes that you want to support. And again, you might want to leave 1%, 10%, all of your estate. It's very, very easy to type it out.
You're an estate planning lawyer. You would have come across plenty of cases of examples where people have died unexpectedly without a will. So, with Free Wills Week starting now, what is your advice, no matter the age, obviously 18 or above? Because I imagine, Izzy, this is put in the life admin. I'll get to that. The too hard basket, they kick it down the street. So, what's your message?
Get online, takes as little as 20 minutes, make your account. It's completely free. We're trying to reduce as many barriers for you as possible so that you can tick this off the list. I know it's a hassle sometimes, or it's not that positive to think about, just think about it like anything else. Getting your insurance done, dealing with your super, just get on and get your will sorted.
Free Wills Week is on now, safewill.com. It doesn't take long. Jump on board. Isabelle Marcarian from Safewill Legal, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Izzy, thank you for your time. All the very best.